turn this maybe into a little half circle. There's not very many people here. So, feels a little like church. It doesn't have to be that serious. Okay. So Lowell and Larry are working hard on current applications. So we're going to let them go.
I'm right here.
Numbers. Okay. I think I know all of you, except you.
I'm Joe Stevens.
Joe Stevens, are you?
Joyce.
Joyce.
Yes.
Okay. You live here in Crofton?
I live by the lake.
Okay.
We're involved with the community club, the local community club, and the thrift store uptown that has been helping a lot with projects within the city.
Okay. Nice to meet you, Joyce. I'm Bobby Pettit. So when I was here in April, we did a, so I originally, just a little recap or a little reminder. The reason that Lowell and I are here, the way we got to know you, is thanks to Kelly and Stacy, who drug us up here to work with Knox County. And we started out working with Crofton, just helping with basic community planning. And so we did, I called it a consensus workshop on April 30th. And then we ended up no longer working with Knox County. And then at the same time, the city of Crofton hired us. So we're still coming up here. So Knox County fired us, Crofton hired us. It's working out perfectly, I think. Anyway, so I don't know if fired is the right word, but
Suspended.
did not renew our contract.
You did not renew contracts.
Yeah, but
Clause,
yeah. But in the meantime, getting to know Crofton, I really like your community. And I feel like you guys are gritty, and I feel like there is work here to be done, and I'm excited to get into it, and so I'm excited to be working with the city of Crofton. So just for total transparency, our relationship with the city is such that we are basically their economic development consultant. So we are working off of a 2-year contract, but we will renegotiate next year. I think it's August to August. So we hope to be working for you for 2 years. We have an agreed scope of work. So these are the things that we will work on. And then we keep a timesheet so that we're paid quarterly by the city. And when we're paid, I come give an update, and then we also submit our timesheet so they can see what we're working on. Because I know that economic development can get real gray real fast, and I know it can be slippery. I did ask the city to give me a year, give us at least 1 year of having meetings like this and surveys like these, and getting our bearings straight and our feet under us and understanding what the community wants to do and what the community is capable of doing. But by year 2, we should start to pay for ourselves in one way or another. So we started year 1 in August. We had a little bit of a head start because we had been working here for Knox County. We had done the consensus workshop, and then we drafted a community-wide survey based off of that workshop. So some of your questions in here are standard because part of our scope of work is to update your comprehensive plan. Your comprehensive plan is necessary if you're going to have zoning regulations, if you're going to do things like tax increment financing, if you are going to try to apply for external sources of funding, you should have a current comprehensive plan. I will update it for you. The council will adopt it, and I will probably be the only one that knows what it says until it's time to go back to it and try to accomplish the goals that are within it. Comprehensive plan is 2 important parts. I say the most important assets in a community are your land and your people. Your land is a fixed asset. It is what it is. It's always going to be here. The people are variable. They come and go. And your people, the condition of your people often depends on how well you manage your asset of land, right? And especially in America, in the rural Midwest, we take our private property rights very seriously. So it's a constant balancing act. That's a main part of your comprehensive plan. So this part right here, what we've accomplished is the people side, is the public input, the community engagement side. The other side has to do with your current land use and your future land use, and we predict your future land use based on what kind of attitude or perception or optimism comes out of your community survey or just the basic community input that we get. Second thing that we're supposed to be doing right now, or something in our scope of work, is helping you with the swimming pool project. So I know you have some money already granted to you. If you don't know Lowell Schroeder sometimes is with me, wasn't with me, you weren't with me in April. I do a lot of planning work. Were you? Okay. I do the planning work, the zoning work. I say Lowell makes it rain. He does we don't say grant writing, okay? I told Bob, and I've lectured you about this. We don't say grant writing. We say project development. There's really no such thing as grant writing. We cannot just go get you a grant. Grants, external funds come when you've pretty much got the project done and you just need a chunk of money to get you over the finish line. The project development part, if you do a good job of planning, the appropriate projects will appear. And then if you do a good job of project development, the external funding streams will appear. So that's another big task that we're working on right now, is pulling in additional funds to help with the swimming pool project. Lowell, do you want to give just a quick overview of the grant that we're working on and what kind of support that's going to provide?
The Land and Water Conservation Fund is for recreational opportunities. A lot of the types of projects that you see funded are swimming pools, aquatic center. You know, it's kind of based on the goals that the state has for recreation. So swimming is one, just general parks.
And it's from Game and Parks, right?
Yes,
It's Land and
Game
Water
Parks,
Conservation
it's
through Game and Parks.
Yeah. And it's maximum of $600,000, and it's at least a 1-to-1 match. So you gotta have this much match with this, and so then if your project is less than that, then it just varies. And so you've got, basically, you've got over $600,000 of local foundation and then different funds committed, which is really great. And that shows really good commitment from the community. And so this is similar. We worked with Humphrey on a new pool, which was like a $4 million, new pool. And so we used this source of funding, back then. So it's a good source. It's very competitive. But looking at the cash flow that Larry had worked out based on the sales tax, it's great that you pass the sales tax, starting to collect that money, because that shows commitment, shows it can pay off any bond that you have. So I think the original estimate, and the first time we applied for this, it was just for the pool renovations, to add the zero entry pool. And so we did get, Wausau had done their pool. I worked with Wausau about 5 years ago, kind of pre-COVID area, on a pool design to make their zero entry. And it's kind of the same thing as when people were talking how much it was going to cost to do a bathhouse, $900 million to a bathhouse. Rod burns, pipe burns down there, and some of their contractors, they went and visited a lot of different pool houses. They came there with a design that they actually built for like $300,000 4 years ago. So we kind of borrowed that design. One of the local contractors provided an estimate, so that's less than $600,000. So that really helps the cash flow. So I'm talking, we need to come up kind of these numbers here, and then this is how much the city's looking at. Kind of get that we can put in that budget. That's pretty practice. But it looks, it looks like it's pulling together real nice.
So you had already done a lot on your own to get the ball rolling on the swimming pool project, knowing that there's going to be a big price tag on the bathhouse. And then Lowell enters the scene and knows how to apply for Land and Water Conservation Fund dollars. So that's a perfect example of how it's supposed to work.
You had enough to do the pool, but you didn't have enough to change the bathhouse out, which, it is important. So again, I think it fits together nicely.
And every time we write a grant or develop a project, and we're trying to bring in funds from outside sources, we always need to show a lot of community engagement. What does the community think? People want this. So that's why we wanted to get this survey done before this grant application is due on Friday. And we needed to have one more community meeting. So our reason for being here tonight is A, to show good community engagement, for this swimming pool project, and then B, if you took the survey or you're curious about the survey, you want to do something with it, this is just to give you closure. So what I have here is rich amount of data that we will be able to use for several things. So the survey is multi-purpose. We'll be able to use it for grant applications within the next 5 years. Probably go on and work on a housing study. We have a lot of what we need. I know you are a C4K, Communities for Kids community, and you'll be asked a lot if you are surveying your people, if you understand what your child care needs are. So there's some good child care questions in here, and then just some basic infrastructure questions that we need for the comprehensive plan part. So,
and also I know, I've been, talked with Megan Smith from the Nebraska Community Foundation a little bit, and, she's aware of the survey, and we talked about company night, and she said, she'll come another time, but, this survey is something that the Community Foundation could definitely use, because communities, like, you've got different groups have different interests for projects. So this should be enough, this should provide information for every group in town to look at and say, community club, hey, this is something that we could do. Let's go on to do this for the foundation. So it'll be used for a lot of different purposes.
yeah, and another good thing about this survey is we had 183 responses. So 183 is it's a good amount of responses for a town the size of Crofton. I had to take statistics in college, so I remember Z-scores and the little thingies with the tails or whatever. We're not worried about any of that. I think, okay, the people that take these surveys that we do, they're generally the people that vote in all of your elections. They're the folks that look at their property tax bill, they look at their utilities bill, they look at their receipts. So if you had like the council chambers filled with 183 of these folks, I feel like their opinions would be worth listening to. Because the survey, I didn't try to make it too long, but it wasn't necessarily short either. There was thought put into these questions, and this was written for Crofton. So all I'm going to do now is just go through the results, and then I made this small because I didn't know how many of you would be coming, and I can email you out a PDF. I knew I'd have like 1,000 pages, and then nobody would be here. So this is just more reference for you. You can take notes on it. So this first one, just how many people in each age range currently live full-time in your household. So the orange is 1. So for instance, 23% of the people that took this survey have 1 0 to 5-year-old living in their house. 15% of the people that took this survey have 2 0 to 5-year-olds. And then 6% of the people that took this survey have 3 0 to 5-year-olds. So I left it in percentages, and then up here you can see 154 people actually answered this question. So 20% of 154 have a 5 and below living in their household. This gives you an idea of the age range, and we go all the way up to 71. So the biggest percentage here is 35% of people that took this survey have 2 people aged 31 to 40. So I'm not in there anymore, but I say these are the people, I call those like the trenches ages. Like I look at my husband and I'm like, I think this is the hardest it's gonna get. Like we have kids, we're raising our kids, we're paying those bills, we're trying to work, we're trying to mow the yard, we're trying to get to all the practices, right? We're trying to keep our heads above water. So, and that's the biggest percentage of people that you have here in Crofton. When I look at your demographic data, your median age has gone down. So I hear a lot of negativity about our small towns are all old, or I was at the governor's conference, and I always have lots of comments when I go to things like the governor's conference off to the side, but there was a comment made there that the largest class in Nebraska are seniors, and the smallest class in Nebraska are kindergartners. And I would say in every community that we work in, it's the opposite. New and Grove, it's the opposite. I don't know if it's the opposite here. Tilden, it's the opposite. Southern Valley Schools, it's the opposite. So I feel like we have more people coming back into our smaller communities. And really, if I'm here working in your town, you're probably a progressive town, because there's not a lot of rural Nebraska communities putting out money for economic development consultant. Then this gives me an idea of where everybody lives who took this survey. So actually the biggest chunk of people, almost a third of the people that took this survey, live out in rural Cedar County. So they're more than a mile out, and they wouldn't consider themselves lake people. So there's a lot of people in rural Knox County that claim Crofton as their community. It always gets tricky though, right? Because the city count like sales tax. People that vote on the sales tax are the people that live within the city limits. City council, the only people that vote on them are people that live within the city limits. Yet we're heavily impacted by what's going on out in the country, which you're probably well aware of, Mr. School Administrator. I can't remember if you're the principal or the superintendent, but I know you have a big job. Okay. The biggest chunk of people in town live down here in Area C. So that's just a perspective of where people live that took this survey. Employment status, so almost half of the people work full-time outside of Crofton. Then the next biggest chunk, 16%, work full-time inside of Crofton, and then 15% of the folks that took this survey are retired. So we don't have a lot of self-employed, or we don't have a lot of business owner, I would say, representation, which is just something to keep in mind when we want to use these survey results. Again, the next time, just remembering, okay, if we do something for downtown Crofton, the survey is probably not a good enough representation. We want to do something just focused on the businesses here in the downtown. The condition of the public buildings. So I've gotten more and more casual the longer I do this work and write these surveys, and the better response I get. So I used to have extremely satisfied, mildly satisfied. Now I have, looks great, looks fine, it's rough. So Crofton Pool, it's rough. That's a big help. That's gonna be a big help for Lowell. Wednesday night at 11 p.m. when he's working on the survey, he tries to be done a day early. So stuff like that'll be a big help. Let's see, looks great. Memorial Baseball Field. Is that the one east of town? That does look great. What else looks rough? City Auditorium. 35% said it looks rough. 32% said your library looks rough. So yeah, Northside Park, is this one Northside or is this one Burbank?
Burbank.
Okay, so Northside Park is 36%. Looks great. That's gonna look even nicer once you have your swimming pool done. This right here is something that's helpful when we write the comprehensive plan, when we're working on this pool grant. Within your comprehensive plan, we'll do just a little bit of a park and recreation master plan. And when I was here this summer and we flew the drone, I can't believe you have some big, beautiful parks for a town of 900 people. So hope you know how lucky you are to have that park space. What is this one? Okay, these are public projects. So there's a difference, like I know we're gonna get into it. I know we're gonna talk about your LBA 40. I know we're gonna talk about economic development. But these things right here, these are the extras, or these are publicly funded projects. So I know that this was on the top of everybody's mind when I was in here and when I was here in April, but these were the projects that were in everybody's 1, 2, or 3. So I know that your sheet's real small, and I know it might be hard to read, so I'm just gonna review for you. So on the left, construct a new shower house to serve guests to the new swimming pool. Construct new pickleball courts, surprisingly low. Construct a trail connecting the city of Crofton to the lake community. This middle one that has that high shooting up there 42%, find a way to build a new elementary school. The next one over, find a way to complete a major renovation and expansion to the high school. Most popular, find a way to build a new elementary school and complete a major renovation and expansion of the high school. And then build a new community center that houses a city office, library, and senior center. So when I was here on April 30th, a consensus was we have a lot of projects. Like we have a lot of stuff that we've started or we've started talking about. But if we were gonna focus on our priorities, I know that the school bond failed, but the survey would tell me that's still a big priority for the folks that took this survey. So, I know we decided on April 30th that we were gonna keep working on it. I don't really know how, but I think you could take this survey to your school board and know that it's still something the community wants to do, especially the new elementary school and major renovation and expansion of the high school. Almost half the people that took this survey said that that was project number one, publicly funded projects that we need to get done. This is the adequacy of the transportation routes. This question is all for me, and probably for the council, and they do something called their 1 and 6 transportation plan. Within your comprehensive plan, we have to have an entire chapter that covers the transportation infrastructure. So let's see, because I'm from Nebraska, I want to find out which one is the worst. No surprise, streets and sidewalks in my neighborhood. Those always get the worst. Those are always the hardest to take care of. In a couple of communities we worked in, we've done something called pedestrian. Well, we made it real fancy so we could apply for some grant funding, but we called it pedestrian transportation and stormwater management plan. And it was really just to figure out okay, we're not gonna get all the sidewalks back, right? All the sidewalks in our neighborhood, we're not gonna get them back. In the 70s, 80s, and 90s, we built a lot of nice neighborhoods without sidewalks at all, I think probably to save money. And then we have sidewalks from the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s that are old and tired, so to think we're gonna get our sidewalk network back is not realistic. But we could if we wanted to, identify, I call them like the key arteries for pedestrians, especially kids. If you're thinking about if you're a low income kid, your best source of transportation is your feet and your bike, right? And you guys still have a school, you still have a swimming pool, still have a grocery store to go to. So we could do something to identify the major arteries in your community that could help with the sidewalks in your neighborhood not being well. Your streets are so expensive and there's not a lot of grant funding to pay for streets. So I know part of your sales tax goes into infrastructure, and so I started doing this work in the early 2000s, and it's not to take anything away from elected officials that went before me. I know that we hit a recession in the 80s, and I know that you can see evidence of our city councils, our town boards, and our county supervisors. When you got on a board, you were trying so hard not to spend money and not to raise taxes. And I understand that, but we are in an infrastructure hole right now. And so when we didn't spend money on maintenance or replacing streets, replacing concrete streets, curb and gutter, we saved money for that year, but we raised the tab for the years to come. So this thing about our infrastructure, especially our curb and gutter streets, and our water infrastructure, it's kind of like housing. It's like a 40-year problem that we are not gonna be able to fix in just a couple of years. So that's gonna take a lot of planning. Overall appearance of the areas in Crofton, what got the worst was downtown Crofton, public improvements in downtown Crofton. There is a funding stream, downtown revitalization planning study, that you have access to in Crofton that we could probably apply for maybe next year, to put a plan together for downtown Crofton to focus on the buildings and then also focus on the streetscape and the sidewalks to make it more attractive. Next one down is the properties next to the roads bringing cars in and out of Crofton. I don't really feel that way out here on the highway. What I've noticed though in rural Nebraska, in Kearney, we go on Highway 30, right? And Lexington, Gothenburg, west side of Kearney, it's like our worst stuff is on the highway, which I don't understand, because it's not to put industrial uses down or salvage yards down or feedlots down, but when you go to someone's house, you don't put your laundry room in the front part of your house, right? You need your laundry room, but you don't invite people to walk through your laundry room to get to your nice living room or to get to your porch. And somewhere along the way, we started doing that in our rural Nebraska communities, putting our rough stuff on the byways. And doing this work, there's so many communities I work in that I had no idea they had such a beautiful downtown, because all I can see is the rough stuff out on the highway when I'm driving through your town. So I wouldn't give you that negative of marks here in Crofton, but 40% of the people that took this survey said that those routes look rough. This one is how often you interact with each public service or facility. So on the left, I have City Auditorium, then Library, Memorial Baseball Field, Northside Park, Burback Park, and Crofton Pool. So, we probably won't use this question maybe for the pool, I don't know, but, so a little bit earlier, I had a question about how these public facilities looked. But then, when you're thinking about spending money on that, especially Mr. Councilmember, you also have to consider how much your patrons use this facility. How often is it actually used? So, Crofton Pool is a priority and it should remain a priority as mother and middle schoolers. But you absolutely need a local swimming pool. But also, half the people said they never even go to the swimming pool. Same with the library. 60% of people in Crofton don't ever go to the library. So I don't think that's something to change. I just think that's something to consider. It looks like the facilities that are used the most, probably the baseball field and the parks. Your satisfaction with services. I crammed all of this stuff onto the same page because I used to put it on several pages and it was brutal. This is another one that is really for your city council to decide how they want to support these services. So I split out facilities and services. So we talked about the condition of City Auditorium. We talked about the condition of streets. Now I'm asking you about street maintenance. How satisfied are you with how much, the level of service that you get? So the lowest ranking one, which I just lectured on this a second ago, so I'll start at the top. So street maintenance is the top one. Green is very happy. Purple is very unhappy. Brown is, I don't use it enough to know. So street maintenance, 73% very unhappy. Stormwater management, 9% very happy. 23% very unhappy. Drinking water, 8% happy, 49% very unhappy. Sanitary sewer, 6% very happy. 55% feel fine, that's good. That's good if people don't really notice their sanitary sewer, right?
Sanitary sewer.
Trash collection, 45% are fine with that. City administration, half are fine with that. 10% very unhappy. Nuisance code enforcement, I'm happy to see that it's a quarter very unhappy. Nuisance, every town I go to, people are upset about nuisance. I used to do nuisance code enforcement. That used to be one of the services that we offer. I will not do it. I can't afford to do it. You can't afford for me to do it. It's because you can't afford to pay me to argue for 3 hours with somebody about whether or not a tire in the front yard is a nuisance. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it, but we don't spend a lot of time on it. We do have a program though where we double down on vacant properties. So we have it's vacant property registry, and we have a systematic program for dealing with long-term dilapidated commercial and residential vacant structures. And I have decided that once we have rid Nebraska of all of the long-term vacant commercial and dilapidated residential structures, then we'll go back to doing nuisance code enforcement. But we can't, it's like, planning and zoning is like raising children, right? And you gotta decide what you're going to battle on, and you gotta realize I'm in this for the long haul, and I'm gonna run out of energy if I try to take on nuisance. So let's take on something that I think, generally as a community, people argue about what is actually a nuisance. But generally as a community, we can all agree that a house that has sat in a neighborhood for 10 years or more with nobody coming or going, with no utilities being used, we can all generally agree that that's really bad for the neighborhood, depending on what the condition of your properties are. Sometimes I have found if we can get rid of the long-term vacant, dilapidated things, then the nuisance starts to look a little bit better on its own. Not a lot, it's not overnight, but you do get a little bit more motivated. Where was I? Zoning code enforcement, 42% feel fine. I'm happy to see that. 40% don't know, don't care. Your police department, so 53% are very unhappy. This is Knox County now, right? And we have some stuff that we put behind us with a local police department, right? So that makes sense. We've already taken steps to change that arrangement. Volunteer fire and rescue, 68%, I'm sorry, 68%, very happy. Library services, 16% very happy, over half, 53%, don't use this service enough to tell you. Parks and playground upkeep, 30% very happy, 58% feel fine. Swimming pool employees, 12% very happy, 14% very unhappy. My middle schooler got set in timeout many times at the swimming pool this year, so I was proud of those teenagers, and I was just so grateful they let them stay at the pool. Thank God for the people that work at the pool. And internet speed and reliability, 9% very happy, 38% very unhappy. Is that people in town, do you think? Do you guys have good Wi-Fi here or no? Not really? Okay. Noted. There-
Great things. Yes, using great things is that. It's the main, bring in
Fiber.
speed.
To bring it in, but it's not here yet? Okay, good. I just started asking this question because everywhere I work, we say like we want to grow. And you do need to grow, right? Your community is like a body. So you just don't wake up one day and say, okay, great workout, so I don't really have to work on my body ever again. We're just gonna hold like this. It's never that way, right? You're always getting better or you're always getting worse. You really hold in the middle. But when we just say we want to grow, that's not good enough for me. That doesn't give us a good enough idea of what growth looks like to you as a community. The only thing that grows for no reason is cancer. So we don't just want to grow here to say that we grew. So this is just asking people, okay, when I say that Crofton is growing and you feel good about the way Crofton is growing, what does that mean to you? So most popular, ensuring future generations are able to live in Crofton. So that's like a backdrop for the school board. That's a backdrop for the city council as you make decisions. Okay, is this decision we're making, this might benefit one property owner or a few people living here right now. But is this decision we're about to make, is this gonna make things easier or harder for future people to live here? So if we continue, I'm not saying you've ever done this because I've never sat through this conversation, but if we continue to armor coat this street every year instead of like taking the punch in the gut and redoing this street, is it gonna make life better or harder, easier or harder for people to relocate here in the future? And there's a lot that goes into that. There's a lot that goes into that, right? If we take out this bond, how much money is this, what is the tax burden going to be on every single person that lives here? Is that gonna make it better or harder for future generations to come here? The next one down is more housing choices for different household sizes and incomes. Housing is a problem that we're all just gonna get used to living with. Housing and childcare are good problems to have though, right? That means you have young people with parents that wanna work. Need for housing means you have people that wanna live here. So these are problems we're gonna get used to. We're gonna have to work on them. Let's see, 46% more local job opportunities in the Crofton area. This one's tricky. When you live in a state that has the lowest unemployment in the country, that one's always tricky about bringing more jobs in. That one's hard. 42%, a downtown business district with no empty buildings. Off the top of your head, how many empty buildings do you think we have here in the downtown? 5?
One less.
One less?
One less than we used to have. In the near future, there'll be one less.
Okay, so then what will that leave us with?
Well, there's the one right on the corner, and the other one on the corner. The big thing is that at our major intersection in town, there's 3 of the 4 are empty.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know
Okay.
how many total, but there's 3 of the 4 in a big intersection.
Are they owned locally?
Yeah, the old bank is owned locally, isn't it? The grocery store.
There's a tanning business in there now.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So they're moving ahead, they're not sitting empty for that.
That's one.
And our main street, you go down our main street, it looks very shiny, not much widows.
That's what I was thinking.
So we're moving ahead that way, it just takes a little longer to get something done. But we're not just sitting on our thumbs, that people trying to have
You make me feel like somebody has told you that you're sitting on your thumbs. Has somebody told you that you're sitting on your thumbs
A lot of people do.
when it comes to your downtown? Well,
No, they're not, we're not sitting on our thumbs.
no, have people told you that? No, you haven't been told that? You're telling me that, like, people have told you that. I feel like, okay. All right, never mind, moving on. And then more choices to purchase goods and services in town is next one down. So I always say that one's easier than just creating jobs. Those choices to purchase goods and services. Like in a town like Crofton, we're probably not gonna recruit a major employer, right? Because again, lowest unemployment in the country. But I say services and secondary jobs. So if you have a big breadwinner, like what did we have? Over half the people are employed outside of Crofton. More than half the people are employed, can't talk, full-time outside of Crofton, right? So if you have a major breadwinner commuting out of town, maybe to work in Yankton or maybe to work in Norfolk or somewhere else, the teenagers or the spouse that's not commuting outside of town, they might as well be in Crofton making baristas than driving up to Yankton to make a barista there. I'm sorry, to make coffee there, right? So I would say like services and secondary jobs, things that make it easier to live here in Crofton. Those jobs are easier to work on than like recruiting a major employer and bringing in like the breadwinner job, I would say, in the house. This one here, I give a long introduction because we need to know your income for some grants. You guys are well over what we would call LMI, low to moderate income, which kind of just takes you completely out of a pool of infrastructure grants that you could apply for. But there's other grants we could possibly work on if we have some idea of what the income breakdown is in the area. We had almost a quarter though that earned over 105. Slow down. Earn over $105,000. That's the green at the top. Is 24%. 6% are 45,000 to 57,000. 14% are 45,000 or less. So if your household income is 45,000 or less, I would say those are your households that are probably struggling the most, and that's over 10% of the people that took the households that took this survey. This is about economic development. So the previous question I asked was about public improvements. This one is about economic development. So you guys have a sales tax. You have an economic development plan. You passed your economic development plan in 2009. So that law has been updated several times in the last 15 years. So your plan right now, I would say, is pretty antiquated and outdated. There's lots more that you can do with sales tax, and there's also stricter laws on the way you can spend your sales tax and account for it. So we're not really going to beat that dead horse right now, but it is time to hit the reset button on your sales tax, and we decided that also when we met on April 30th. So we're hitting the reset button on your sales tax. What does your community, what do the people in your community expect to see? Like when they think economic development, when they think we're spending sales tax on economic development, what type of projects do we think we're gonna see? So the highest one, so dark blue is 1. So these people said this was their #1 thing. So 24% said support and attract local businesses that provide daily services and goods. So that goes back to supporting and attracting businesses that provide services and secondary goods. Your downtown is ideal for those kinds of businesses. The next biggest one was the 16%, connecting high school students and recent graduates. You already do some things like that, don't you, Kelly and Stacy, with Knox County graduates? And then providing startup funding for a child care center that would serve the Crofton area. So you guys are on your way on starting a child care center, right? Aren't you? So that's something new that became possible in 2019, is even if your child care center is a nonprofit, you can support your child care centers with your LB 840 money. So that's just another big incentive, but you have to say it in your plan. Your LB 840 plan has to call out that you are supporting child care centers, and even if there are, because your LB 840, your sales tax, it's only supposed to benefit for-profit businesses. So it's either direct loans and grants to a for-profit business, or you have to be able to tie whatever you're doing back to benefiting businesses in the area. So communities are using LB 840 now for housing, right? But you have to have something in your LB 840 plan called a workforce housing action plan. So you cannot put your LB 840 money just into any housing. You have to be able to prove that the housing that you are developing or improving, the people that are working in Crofton, working the jobs in the Crofton area, this housing is for them. So this housing needs to be affordable to your workforce in Crofton, and we have to call that out in your LB 840 plan. We have to say what kinds of housing that we're supporting. So this one, supporting and attracting local businesses, that's easy with LB 840. The startup childcare, which is the next, or childcare funding, which was the next most popular, we can do that with LB 840, but we have to call it out in your plan. High school students, we talked about that. And then I think the next big one was create, complete an overall improvement plan for downtown Crofton. So this question would be helpful for us if you guys want to do downtown revitalization. That's never been done here, right? We ever done downtown revitalization here? So many communities that you might drive through in northeast Nebraska, Neely is the most common one coming to mind. And you think,
Neely, Wausau, Creighton.
Okay.
Laurel.
and you're like, oh, that's adorable little downtown with their new sidewalks and their cute little signposts and their facades that look like we've gone back in time. Chances are they were the recipient of downtown revitalization. So you can apply for downtown revitalization planning money, where we would hire, like, if you would, well, okay.
We can't do planning.
That's right. We can do projects though, right? We can do, so we might have to do a downtown revitalization plan
Planning within.
on our own, not grant funded. Could pay for it with your LB 840 money. So when I say planning, I mean hiring a landscape architect, a building architect, and possibly an engineer to give you a downtown master plan, to tell you the types of improvements that your buildings need and what the general cost would be, so that if you have building owners applying for downtown revitalization money, you know, like, the type of improvements that you would want to help them pay for. So you wouldn't help them pay for covering their entire building with siding. I don't know if anybody's done that in your downtown. Happens a lot. You wouldn't pay for that. If they wanted to put new windows in, so they had the original windows that they had when the building was built, if they want to put a new awning in, or if they want to do tuck pointing to the brick, all of those things are things that you would help pay for, that we would identify within your downtown revitalization plan. You wanted to redo your infrastructure in your downtown, we could apply for downtown revitalization money. Need to have a current comprehensive plan before we do that kind of stuff though. Do you believe that the community's young alumni, so that's 20 to 35 years old, this first one, do you believe they can afford to live and work in or near Crofton? 65% said yes, 34% said no. And then this one's more interesting. Do you believe they want to live and work in or near Crofton? This new generation, we've made life, I say we've made life good enough for the next generation that they get to make more decisions based on wants than needs than probably my parents had to. So 50.5% say yes, they want to live here. 49.5% say no, they don't want to live here. 20 to 35. So I'm not talking about newly out of high school. I'm talking about new in your career. I found that 50.5 versus 49.5 very interesting. Okay, so now these are just housing. These are just housing specific questions that we plan to use for housing study or maybe housing grants. So federal government, so we don't say affordable housing anymore. Okay, if you're still saying affordable housing, you're behind. Tell your friends in Kansas, because they're saying affordable housing down there and they're outdated. So we used to say low income housing, and then everybody, then we started to say affordable housing. Well, what does that even mean, right? So now we say workforce housing. But I don't agree a lot with what the federal government does, but a good rule of thumb they have in their programs is that if you are spending more than 30% of your income on rent or mortgage, insurance, and utilities, then you are housing stressed. you are spending more of your income on housing than you should. So, where is this at? Okay, at the top, 23% are above the affordable range. So that means 23% of the households that took this survey, 180 households, right? So what is that? Roughly 36 households. They're paying more than 30% of their take-home pay for housing. And then, have you or someone you know searched for housing in Crofton in the past 3 years? The purple on the left is 70%. Yes, myself, a friend, or a relative have searched for housing in the past 3 years. And then, of these people that searched for housing, then we asked them how did that search turn out? So 37%, the group at the top, is still searching. 24%, dark purple on the right. No, housing was found, but it's not satisfactory. It's not what they were looking for. 13% on the left. Yes, we found what we were looking for, but it took us more than a year. And then 26%, quarter at the bottom. Yes, the search lasted less than 1 year. So this 37% and this 24% is what we would focus on. Okay, so of those people that were searching for housing, what type of housing were they searching for? Overwhelming popular, 58% was searching for purchase for our family. 11% was looking for semi-retired or retired, 1 or 2 people. 13% for purchase for my single person working age household. Teachers, these birth teachers, maybe? Just a side note, in Kearney where I live, it's like a neighborhood that was built in the 70s. House across the street is for rent, $1,800 a month. Not affordable. Anyway, moving on. Okay, this set of questions was because of the conversation I heard about. We need more volunteers. We need more people to step up and be in these organizations. But look at this list of organizations that we have that people are a part of already in Crofton. I don't know if it was a glitch with the survey, but Crofton's dam race got 0% across the board, which doesn't make sense to me because aren't a lot of people involved in Crofton's dam race?
Hundreds and hundreds, that's the biggest.
It was 0%. 0%. So I'm gonna have to go back and look at the raw data and see what happened. I don't believe that either. But current member, so most people are a current member in their local church. And then next one down is Crofton Community Schools. This big gap, this big missing tooth, I have to go back and find out where Crofton's dam race went. I don't know where that dam race went. This next one down is not a member, but willing to donate my time. So these are the people like less than 10% really, until you get hot.
Their names.
This is just to give you an idea. So, but Crofton Community Club, so that was like over 12%, said not a member and willing to donate my time. And then for your fire department and Main Street treasurers, next one, not a member and willing to donate my money. So, that's over half said that about Main Street treasurers and about the fire department. And then over here to the right, not interested in this. So, Senior Citizen Center, Crofton Community Foundation, and Crofton Community Club. And then, are you interested in joining a volunteer organization in Crofton? 22, Crofton. 22% yes, 62% no, and 16% I don't know what opportunities to volunteer exist. And then, do you currently belong to any volunteer organization? So over half the people that took this survey said no. But just real quick, if we go back, it probably seems like you don't have a lot, but this is, I don't even think this list is all inclusive. And I mean, I'm on all your Facebook pages. I see how much work goes in, how much work you put into that dam race. And I see everything that the community club tries to get going. So I think you probably have more volunteer organizations than you think. And I also see how busy Crofton Community Schools is. And I've got a whole stump speech that I'll spare you because I know a lot of you have heard it, especially Lowell's heard it several times, but I got a whole stump speech about don't ask people 35 to 50 to volunteer if they have kids in the house. Because if you keep finding stuff for our kids to do, then we can't come. Do you know how many things I'm missing just by being here tonight? Football practice, dance practice, music boosters meeting by not being in town. So it's not really realistic. I'm trying to bust that myth. Just a little public service announcement everywhere I go. And then this, are you aware of any organizations that are seeking volunteer improvement? Slightly more than 50% said yes. So I don't know. I don't feel like your volunteerism attitude is maybe as bad as you feel it is. I know you say it's always the same old people, it's always the same old people. In Kearney, it's the same way. In Kearney Public Schools, it's the same way. I don't know, I think it might just be personalities too. Some people just enjoy volunteering for stuff. There was a lot more people that were willing to give their money than willing to give their time. Because right now I feel like my time is more valuable than my money. Okay, we're almost done. No, I'm losing you. I only have 3 more slides. If you just get up and leave, I won't take it personal. I won't feel bad. These are the following statements that best describe your understanding of the overall child care situation. So I've been working on child care questions to try to make them meaningful. So 66% say, I know of at least one family that's being negatively impacted by a lack of adequate child care in Crofton. 66%, so we had 180 people take the survey, so divide that in half, 90. Some of those people probably double answered for the same family, but I bet we would still whittle it down to maybe 30 to 50 families that are struggling. Or look, you know of this. 10%, my organization or business where I'm employed has lost at least one potential or current employee due to a lack of adequate child care. 26%, I'm not aware of any situations. And then 16% were other statements, and I have those up here. And I just closed a survey yesterday, and I don't release, I've learned the hard way a couple times, I don't release the open-ended comments until I've just had a chance to browse through them and make sure there's anything in there that's not necessary or helpful. So stay tuned on the 16% other statements about childcare. And then, this is not really for you, but this would really help your folks that are working on the Child Care Center and that are working with C4K communities. So this is just, please select the statement that best describes your family's needs. Our family needs full-time child care today for 0 to 5. Our family needs part-time child care for 0 to 5. Our family needs full-time for 6 to 12. Our family needs part-time for 6 to 12 and after school. So I'm not going to go through this with you guys right now, but I feel but this data will help your child care center folks. And then this one, the statement that best describes your family child care needs. So 13%, my family is being negatively impacted. 48%, my family has no children, does not anticipate having any child care needs in the future. That is me. My family is satisfied with our current, 14%, my family is satisfied with our current child care arrangement, and we anticipate on having additional different needs in the future. So 14%, these folks are still at it, and they're like, we're fine for now, but that doesn't mean we're saying we're not gonna need more help in the future. 15%, we are satisfied with our arrangement, and we don't anticipate additional needs. So we're fine for now, we're gonna make it to the end. And then other statements, 11%. Okay, so that is your community-wide survey results in a nutshell. I have a lot that I'm going to do with this, me and Lowell, but this information belongs to the community of Crofton. It belongs to the city council, and it belongs to you guys to go forward and do other things with it that you want to. So I'm not going anywhere. So if you want to visit about any of these questions or get into any of this deeper, I'm happy to do that. if you have somewhere to go or, you know, want to go back to your Netflix series, that's fine too. Have a kid to pick up.
Another meeting at Sept.
Yeah, another meeting to go to, foundation meeting,
No,
boosters meeting,
no, no.
thrift store meeting, church